So say you found a skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, welcome to Jackson with Jackson, but also we have Maddie from Science Side Up. So there you go. And Maddie is, she runs Science Side Up, which has a whole lot of various science topics, especially stuff about meteorology, because guess who's working on her meteorology PhD? Yes.
Ooh.
Also, she just recently published a D&D module on the DM's Guild called Oops All Clerics, in which also I contributed art. So if you like Dungeons & Dragons, go get Oops All Clerics. But also here, of course, is the actual eponymous Jackson. So say hello to Jackson, everybody. Jackson is a biology student. What's the specialty that you're working on? Organismal biology, I believe?
I'm working on my master's in organismal biology.
There you go. And he definitely knows the difference between various high-order taxa in the animal kingdom. Like, you know, Eutrochozoa and Spiralia and like, Ichthyozoa and things like that. So if you have any questions like that, you should ask him. And he's usually
basically
right.
a stegosaurus.
Yeah.
You're basically a stegosaurus.
Basically, that's true. I mean, at that level of analysis, that is actually true. Yeah, I am basically a stegosaurus at that level.
I see no discernible difference.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, actually, I suppose at that point, like, there's also no discernible difference between me and, like, a carp.
We're all fish here.
It's true.
You know.
So we are here to talk about Dr. Charles Jackson, bad Jackson, if you will. Because, of course, Jackson Weed is good Jackson. And,
okay. Before the stream, we were discussing what are Dr. Charles Jackson's credentials.
Yes.
I have that information for you all. Okay. He has a doctorate of education in science education. He has a master's in environmental biology, a second master's in a master's of education in science education, and then a bachelor's of science in biology.
For him.
Okay.
Nice.
Good for him.
You would think that he would be smart enough to know that broad-spectrum antibiotics is not how we should treat every bacterial infection ever.
You would certainly think that, but I guess if his master's is in environmental biology, maybe not like cell or microbiome, and that was in like the late 80s.
I feel like in the 80s we knew that broad-spectrum antibiotics still wasn't the solution to all bacterial infections.
I guess that's probably true. Sorry, I'm thinking about meteorology where like what we knew in the 80s is almost nonsense.
At least in my experience, there was a lot of focus on like medicine in my undergrad, largely because I went to LSUS and we have a lot of really big hospitals around here, and most of the biology students end up going into med. So if he, even if he encountered medicine like at all, he should still know why that's dumb.
Okay.
Yeah. He doesn't have a whole lot of excuse. So
I mean, I have 0 degrees in biology, and I know that's dumb.
Right. My goodness. So we're going to go over the drinking rules real quick, because this is, of course, a Tuesday show, which means we got drinking rules. Now, I want to say that, first of all, Jackson with Jackson, the Dapper Dino channel, and my panelists do not encourage you to drink to excess, and if that's going to be a problem, don't follow these drinking rules. Also, for $5, Michael Apple says, actually, I should give you money if I'm going to insult your choices in RPGs. I don't remember you having done so, but thanks. I appreciate the $5. For $5, you can insult whatever RPGs you want. But by the way, D&D is not the last RPG I played. That would go to Mothership, which I played with Maddie.
That was a very fun game.
Yes, I'm going to be editing that together, hopefully in the next few weeks, and then it will be up on my Top Hats Off channel as an edited RPG Let's Play that's going to focus heavily on the narrative and less on the mechanics. So, if you want to have a nice, fun, somewhat stereotypical sci-fi horror romp with the science team and friends, check that out. And actually, the next game I play will probably be D&D, but I have the... by request, this was not even my idea, by request from someone else, I pre-ordered the Power Rangers RPG that's coming out later this month. So I'm gonna have to try and like experiment with that and run a few one-shots to see how it actually runs. But anyway, the drinking rules, which again, we don't take responsibility or liability for any damage to self, others, property, injury, any crimes you may commit, anything like that. So be responsible. You've been warned. So we take a drink whenever Dr. Charles Jackson gets something so wrong we just kind of have to. We also take a drink whenever he gets something right that he's not just quoting from someone else. We also take a drink whenever he tells a joke that doesn't land. Whenever he tells a story that we're pretty sure just didn't happen. Also, if one of us calls the next argument he's going to give and says that it's a drink trigger, it becomes a drink trigger. Also, sometimes you might hear the voice of Godzilla or Mothra come through. Take a drink for that. Now, there are 2 Super Chat related drink options. One is, anyone can Super Chat any variation that indicates that AIG are a bunch of dicks. We'll take a drink for that. And that is because they are horrible copyright trolls who like to claim copyright on anything to do with them. Fraudulently. Also, if you're a channel member and you have access to the channel emojis, there is a Godzilla, a Mothra, and a King Ghidorah emoji. If your Super Chat includes any of those, we take a drink. And I think that covers it. Oh, we also take a drink for Godwin's Law, but that's more of a Kent Hovind thing because I don't think Charles Jackson is really going to go there. But if he does, we'll take a drink for it. So, and yes, I'm not using Godwin's Law in a strict sense. I just mean broadly if he brings up various members or the existence of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, we take a drink. Because for some reason, young Earth creationists just love to do that.
Hasn't yet, has he?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think he's done that yet. Huh.
With Matt Powell, he jumps to school shootings more often.
Yeah, we might have to like tack that on for Matt Powell.
It's more of a younger person thing, it seems, anyway. Like because I don't think a lot of the older ones are like, but also school shootings. I think that's more of like a younger apologist kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we just, as I said, got done hearing Dr. Jackson, Bad Jackson, tell us how we should always just use broad spectrum antibiotics on everything. Which, my goodness, if you want to devastate your internal microbiome, that's a good way to do it.
If you want to make some real antibiotic resistant bacteria, that's also a great way to do it.
It's basically just terrible all around. Oh, and here's for $5 from Carrie Bronson. AIG are the uncomfortably successful worms that cause a mass extinction of brain cells. Which is, of course, a reference to preampulids, which remind me again, Jackson, Ecdysozoa?
Play the video.
Okay, here we go.
For pandemic purposes.
This was in 2016, so he's not talking about any current pandemic, but also he is saying that new organisms can't evolve new features, and we're currently watching this in 2022, so, just saying.
Okay, so one guy is immune, he survives and multiplies, and also people, the rumor on the street, the way it's envisioned is that the bacteria are all sitting around waiting for us to make a new antibiotic drug, and they'll go, look, the humans have invented a new drug, quick, let's evolve.
Oh, no.
I have...
No.
What?
No, that's definitely not true. There's a good book by Sean Carroll, the developmental biologist. There's like 6 Sean Carrolls. There's a crap load of them. But the developmental I think that's Sean B. Carroll, titled A Series of Fortunate Events, not to be confused with the similarly titled fiction series. One of the things he discusses in this book is that bacteria, protists, viruses, all these organisms which have extremely large population sizes, they don't have very large genomes, usually on the order of like a few million base pairs. Because they all have mutations, they're all like, at some point you're likely to like mutate every base pair in the genome. And so what's happening is you have these individuals who are very low frequency, these populations, pre-antibiotics. They've got these mutations which don't confer any big selective advantage. And then the selective advantage comes in, and suddenly their alleles increase in frequency, which, Dapper, remind me, is that the definition of evolution?
Yes, I believe it is the definition of evolution, Jackson.
Oh, wow. There we go.
Weird. Also, for $5 from Caleb Sherstead, Cato the Elder, the Roman senator, is well known for ending his speeches with Carthago delenda est, which is, of course, Carthage must be destroyed. Slightly less well known is his epithet AIG is a bag of mentula, which of course is a vulgar Latin term for a penis. So we're gonna take a drink because that was clever. I like it. That's a surprisingly deep dig into like linguistic and like European ancient history. I gotta tell you, some of these AIG are a bunch of dicks. Super chats have been amazingly clever. There's some real creativity here. All right, here we go.
Okay, and they evolved the shielding, kind of like Iron Man's suit, you know.
What is he talking?
You know, and now that
was
they
a
have
joke
this
that
new
didn't land. Take a
armor
drink.
that evolves. That has never happened. It's never been seen to happen. It's
By the way, we don't count.
I mean,
been suggested.
Come on, we don't count when jokes land with Good Jackson because he laughs at almost everything.
I mean, it's I love the rules. They're very funny, but also isn't he technically correct? Like bacteria have never been observed to evolve Iron Man armor. I mean,
That's true. Yeah, you know what? That is true. Let's take a drink.
Yeah.
Bacteria, to my knowledge, have never evolved Iron Man armor.
I think what he's trying to say is that they don't evolve novelties of any sort, which he said multiple times, like in the last episode. I think we talked about some of the major examples of novelties that have evolved in bacteria as a response to antibiotics, which is crazy. Like efflux pumping, which is basically you're putting out the antibiotic faster than it's getting in, or beta-lactamases, carbapentamases, all that fun stuff, which have evolved basically ways to prevent the lactam in the antibiotic from interacting with the bacterial transpeptidase and thus preventing their cell wall from being rebuilt. No, that doesn't happen. That's crazy talk.
Yeah. Also, by the way, since there's some discussion about Cato, look, Cato the Elder gets all the press because he was amazingly curmudgeonly, which kind of makes him fun to read. I'm not kidding.
Excellent.
He's like history's biggest curmudgeon. He's this old man who spent most of his life teaching people how to run an efficient latifundia, which is basically a farm you own where you just have your slaves go work it. And then he went to the Senate to like denounce people wearing pants and all the horrible new things the kids were getting into.
Yeah.
And he's still complaining about Carthage after like the last Carthaginian War had been over for like 20 years. And like it's kind of amazing. You're like, my goodness, how is this a real human who existed and not just a cartoon of an old man?
Original old man yells at clouds.
Basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why Cato the Elder gets all the press, whereas Cato the Younger, I don't even remember, what was he, like a second-rate historian or something? Who knows? He wasn't an amazing curmudgeon, so there you go. Oh yes, and Cato the Elder hated the Greeks too. Well, I mean, those Greeks, they're way too debauched for Cato the Elder.
Oh yeah, naturally. Yeah, as I say, my history education is way less robust than my science and math education.
That's okay. All right, here we go. Let's get some more Jackson in. Bad Jackson.
That's what's happening, but science tells us no. There's no evidence that has happened. That's interesting to talk about, like aliens and the Loch Ness Monster and stuff like that, and Bigfoot. Those are interesting.
Still right.
But they're not science till we got some observations, evidence, and data and measurements. That's what science is.
Yeah.
People have forgotten that.
Well, we'll take a drink.
No, you really haven't forgotten that.
I think it's funny. It's like his thing about. I assume he's still talking about like the bacteria with Iron Man armor. He's like, that's interesting, like aliens and the Loch Ness Monster, but it's not science. Like
Yes.
I agree.
Guess?
We all agree. Correct.
I'm waiting for his point,
Oh, and the Venerable Lee points out that Cato the Younger is famous for absolutely hating Julius Caesar. Oh, yeah. That's right.
Excellent.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, he was in good company. There were a whole lot of people who really didn't like Julius Caesar. So, I mean, the dude did get stabbed by a bunch of people all at the same time.
That
when
is
multiple
the play.
people join up to stab you all at the same time, you're not a popular dude.
So in like 2014, I went to London just for funsies with a friend, and Julius Caesar was playing at the Globe Theater,
Nice.
and so I got to see Julius Caesar get stabbed on stage in a proper like 1500 dress and costume.
Nice.
That was very cool.
And did he say that line that he didn't really say in real life? Et tu, Brute?
Yes, very dramatically. The fake blood on stage was amazing.
Real blood even more so.
Yeah. Like,
My Unfinished Journey says AIG est un sacculum de priapulide. So we're gonna take a drink. Very nice. I appreciate the attempts to work other languages in as a way to get around the fact that YouTube won't actually let you just type AIG as a bunch of text. That's why you have to be creative, because if you don't, then you get nothing.
Now
I mean,
they think
like I'm
Sorry.
not for censorship, but we do see places where like creativity explodes where there is harsh censorship, right? Like
it's a silver
comics
lining.
And yeah, it's a silver lining.
All right, here we go.
Science is who can talk sounding more smarty.
What?
Burns me up. Because some people are really good, smart talkers, and they don't know anything.
Womp womp womp.
Wow. There's some. That's just so ironic. I'm taking a drink. Like, ooh.
This belongs on Self-Aware Wolves.
Yes.
which
Anyone who
is-
wants to clip that and send it over there. My goodness. All right, here we go.
They don't know anything. They're just silver-tongued. That's not what science used to be about, friends. It's not what I got into
Still
science
not
for.
about that.
That's just literally old man yells at clowns.
Like, guys, I was just at early, like a
In
month
my
ago.
day.
I was at a conference, right? A science conference. So people were up presenting their science. Guys, scientists are not great speakers. As a whole,
Yeah,
we're
there's-
not great at it.
There's a reason why science communicators usually aren't themselves active scientists.
Yeah, it's completely different skill sets. So I don't know what Bad Jackson is like. It's like he's making up a problem to take it down, you know? So like I don't yeah.
What, creationists making up a problem with science?
Oh,
That
is
would-
this using a straw man?
That would never
What?
happen. Also,
Citation earlier was literally National Geographic, so he's
Yes.
not like tackling technical literature here. So
My Unfinished Journey says, would self-aware wolves be a new drink trigger? I think it just falls into things that are just so dumb that I can't help it.
Yeah.
By the way, Stupid Horror Energy sends for $4.99 US, I can talk, 2 dragon emojis, which I greatly appreciate. Because dragons are fun, and these are nice Eastern dragons with antlers and beards. And I always find like that's a fun like combination of different animal bits, which is why I like the Godzilla Final Wars Manda, which looks a lot like that. And it was also way better looking than the actual Manda from the movie Manda or from Destroy All Monsters. So, yeah, they're Godzilla stuff. Here we go.
I was debating 3 evolutionists at once against me at DePaul University in Greencastle, Indiana, and I made the point that science is a search for the truth, and they all just about fell out of their chairs yelling at me, no. And one of
I'm
them
gonna
finally spoke
take
and he said,
didn't happen.
Yeah,
Getting a
that's
drink for things that never happened.
yeah, things didn't happen. I don't think they fell out of their chairs.
Maybe being charitable. I think maybe what he's saying is like science is a search for the truth, which would be a misunderstanding of how science
Yeah.
operates. I could see if that's maybe what he means, but I think he phrased it poorly. So
You phrased it poorly to exaggerate a story and to try to make these
Yeah.
3 evolutionists that totally exist and are definitely real
yeah,
seem silly and like they're overreacting.
See, what I would say is more that science is not so much a search for the truth with some kind of capital T, because you're never going to get there.
Right.
Oh, drink for Godzilla. You're never going to arrive at the truth with a capital T via science.
I think that's what
Right.
that's what he's saying.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
what science more is a search to get rid of as many wrong things as possible, in the hopes that
Yeah.
what is left behind is at least applicable enough that we can use it going forward with our future endeavors, whatever those may be.
Yeah. To me, it's like it's all about like well, and again, I'm in the physical sciences, so this is very like I want to understand the physical world around me well enough that I can predict something about it, right? And that's really like that's the goal of science. It's not a very pretty or catchy phrase, but that's what we're trying to do, you know, with especially meteorology, right? We're trying to get better at telling you what the weather's going to be like next week.
And successfully, I might add.
Yeah, we're pretty darn successful, like up to like 7 days out. And we're even better at hazardous weather because that's where we put a lot of our time and attention is to weather phenomena that like harm people. But anyway, that's so to me like and that's not a big philosophical statement about like we're discovering the truth. It's like no, we're improving. You know what I mean? Like that's such a
Yeah.
science and philosophy are not the same thing, and philosophers shouldn't try to be scientists, shouldn't try to be philosophers, right? These are very different fields. Anyway,
Okay.
Let's
that's a
rock.
pet peeve of mine. Let's rock and roll.
Here we go.
No, science is not a search for the truth. It's a discussion.
Oh, that's also cringy and weird, but okay.
Science is a discussion. And I said to them, well, if that's all it
It
is,
involves
then I got in
discussions.
the wrong business.
Yeah.
I got into science because I wanted to know things that were true. That's why I got into science. And
Okay, so there's a difference between things that are true and the truth. When you
The
say
truth.
the truth, you're talking about things that are like, you know, like big epistemic conclusions about the
Just
nature of reality.
true in all possible worlds.
Right,
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah.
thing, right? Like it's true in all
Like-
possible worlds that squares have four corners. Yes, that's...
Actually, no.
No?
No.
There's a possible world in which squares have fewer than four corners or more?
I mean, there's yeah.
I mean, there's possible
'Cause
worlds...
there's
possible worlds in which a different word is used to describe that shape.
no. I mean, like there's gonna be geometries where a square, as we understand it, like you could think of a topological space where like squares have curves and don't meet at right angles.
But still have four
Um,
corners.
You have to define a corner because that's not really how. So mathematically,
Well, an angle.
anyway. Sorry, and sure, yeah. So there's I can't think of a topology where squares wouldn't be made of four lines, right, or possibly curves. But like other things we use to define a square would break, right? Like that they have to meet at right angles, that all the like opposite sides are parallel, right? You can break that by making your topology world. You can make a perfectly mathematically reasonable world where 1 equals 0. That's a perfectly coherent mathematical world. It's not very interesting, but there's nothing wrong with it. Anyway, sorry, that was a tangent, but
But yeah, so if you're getting into science to learn things that are true with a small t, like, you know, I don't know, what the force of gravity is, or, you know,
yeah,
how
low
many...
pressure systems tend to cause bad weather.
Right, or like
Yeah.
how electricity works. Yes,
Yeah.
you can do that with science. But if you're looking for these, you know, big capital T truths, TM, I got it this time, then yeah, science might not be the place that you're going to get that. That's where you're going to need to look into things like philosophy and logic and maybe to some extent math, depending on exactly which parts of big capital T truth you're looking for. And I think that's what's happening here, is Bad Jackson is just equivocating on the word truth and true. And he's like, oh, anything that's true is what people think of when we kind of say the truth, which that's not what anyone means, really.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and then to comment on that thing of they said that the 3 people he was debating at once said it's discussion. One, that's not how anybody would define science, right? But that is like it's our like the best method we have to understand things better is somebody presents something at a conference in scientific literature, and then we all argue why that can't be right.
Yeah. Yep. That is the most common
Uh,
scientific discussion. Why this person's work is nonsense.
Right. That's like, and then we all argue about why that can't be right. And if, so we're all, and then eventually the things that are like more right float to the top, right?
Yes. Yeah. The
And
least nonsensical stuff is what remains.
yeah, the most not wrong bits get to the top.
I mean, that's a weird way to put it, but it's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I think Bad Jackson here imagines science more like medieval alchemy, where you're like
Ooh, yeah.
working with all these mystical equations, and you're trying to uncover the secret of the universe that will let you transmute matter and live forever. And then there's a bunch of scientists telling each other why they're all stupid. That's what's actually going on. Vandalia 1998 for $5 with a Godzilla emoji, so drink for Godzilla. If you 3D need a break from Evil Jackson anytime in this 2-hour stream, you can always watch my movie trailer. Good to know.
This is their attitude.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, my favorite way to like short and sweet way to define science is like the process of becoming less wrong.
Yeah, that seems fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, that it's smarter to think that science is just this discussion where we just pass the baton around and around the room and everybody talks and we all just get wiser and wiser. It's like the little choo-choo train that goes around the Christmas tree. It never gets anywhere. It
Do you
doesn't
think that
go.
like science is like just an English course?
Apparently, that's how he's taking
undergrad?
this response that he got, which I don't think he really got.
Yeah.
It's like we all.
I think we're just spinning a straw man from his own fake story. But also, the choo-choo
Discussing,
train was a joke that didn't land, so take a drink.
themes in like this work or whatever, and that's just how we're gonna learn about it.
Oh,
that
and, like,
sounds real.
Yeah, hold on, real quick. Stupid Horror Energy says, "Oh, that's the emoji you wanted." Yeah, sorry. So, I'll show everyone. There are 3 specific emojis that are channel member exclusives, and those are the emojis in question. And so, that's just a quick way that if any channel member wants to even send like one of like the 99-cent super chats, they can trigger a drink with one of those. Sorry. Yeah, they are exclusive channel members. It's one of the little perks that you get for like tossing me $1.99 a month. Basically. Sorry. So, more Jackson or
More Jackson.
Here we
More
go.
Bad Jackson.
Go anywhere. It can't. And that's a cute way of putting it, but the tragedy is my colleagues, who are evolutionists, Christian or not, are trapped in an illusion.
I'm glad he at least recognizes that it's not just Christians against atheists that is synonymous with creation versus evolution. So that's more than I usually get from YECs.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that's bothering me about his analogy here is like the next logic step of this statement is therefore no scientific therefore science hasn't progressed in the last 50 years or like hasn't improved human life. You know what I mean? And like, well, that's not like, no, medicine is way better than it was, 20 years ago, and technology is better than it was, and weather forecasts are better than they used to be. And as far as I can tell, like, we're not trapped in a circle. We're kind of making continuous progress in every field, any field you can. So I don't really know what his point here is.
His point is to make mainstream science look bad in the eyes of his audience.
Well, yes, but it's a bad argument.
Yeah, well, of course it is. He's a young Earth
It's a
creationist.
bad argument, Zapper.
Those are literally the only kinds of arguments young Earth creationists have.
Okay.
They just vary in level of like intellectual honesty and sophistication, but they're all bad because I mean, young Earth creationism is false. So
Intellectual trick of the devil. And it's as
The
stupid
devil.
as stupid can get. But smart people believe it. Because the devil is just that powerful, just that good.
Guys, the devil is the president of science. I don't know if you know.
Mhm.
President and
He
CEO of Science
He like
Limited.
the top editor of like Nature and Science and PNAS.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they all of the
Yeah.
editors of the top journals, they're all actually
Him.
just working for Satan.
Actually, Satan.
Yeah.
It is just Satan. It's
Oh, it's just
not like I
Satan.
work
Just
for-
Satan.
It just
It's
is
just
Satan.
Satan.
That dude must be so busy reviewing papers. My goodness.
Very busy.
I think it's time to like give Satan a break, like buy him a 6-pack of beer or something, and say like, "Hey, dude, put your feet up and let some humans take care of a few papers."
Pepper, when
Yeah.
was the last time you saw something like Job happening? He doesn't have time for miracles nowadays. He's just reviewing papers constantly.
That's true. That's
Exactly.
why. That's why no one's just getting spontaneous boils for no reason.
There you go.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound like the worst trade-off, honestly.
But that's why it's so hard to get published.
Well,
Oh,
there
I
you
see
go.
now.
Now it all adds up.
Because Now it all adds up.
Satan really likes a lot of like popular, or he likes making some researchers popular, like the
Yeah.
grants,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
He also
Um,
really has a bias towards positive results as opposed to negative results.
Mhm.
And he just doesn't care at all about certain sciences like various social sciences and psychology where reproducibility is basically zero.
Mhm. Yeah.
And don't even get me
Well-
started on some of the like social sciences where you can literally submit machine generated gibberish papers and have them published, because that's a demonstrated fact.
It
If
is
it's-
demonstrated.
if that is his
but he's
miracles.
not in charge of those journals.
Oh,
he's in charge of
only
Science,
the-
Nature, and PNAS.
Okay.
he
Who's in charge of PLOS?
charges all of his. Well, that's probably Satan too.
That's probably Mephistopheles.
Yeah.
Be.
Andrew Cummings says, did my question for Jackson show up? I don't know. I don't currently see it on my chat, so you might want to ask it again, and you probably want to tag me because I'm not positive that Jackson has the chat up.
Did not. I'm
You know,
sorry.
the dark side of the force has a strong effect on the weak mind.
Yeah, that's a joke that didn't land.
If people want to believe this stuff, Satan's going to give them all of the willpower to just go ahead and believe it against all odds, as Dr.
Damn it, Satan always giving us the willpower to believe things that are demonstrable based on evidence.
Listen,
How dare you!
I knew differential equations was of the devil. I knew it.
Does he also like remove the willpower for people to believe evolution from other people, like Charles Jackson?
Oh, no, he's not that
That it-
powerful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh wait, he can only influence the people Charles Jackson does not like, not the people.
Yeah,
Charles
he
Jackson does like.
Satan,
Right.
once you start taking things like evidence and logic
Mhm.
and statistics seriously, that's how Satan gets his hooks in you.
Okay.
Also, if you're sitting in this audience, you clearly have a really strong faith that keeps the devil away.
Oh, yes. But you have to ignore
So-
things like math that's much more advanced than 8th grade.
Well, that's of the devil.
Right. Look, guys, Satan invented
Believe
algebra. That's why it has an Arabic name and not a good Christian English name.
Mhm.
By the way, Andrew Cumming has a question for Jackson. I was once asked what a horseshoe...
Jackson or bad Jackson?
Well, presumably good Jackson, since I don't think bad Jackson can answer. I was once asked what a horseshoe crab is exactly. Is there any current consensus on the phylogenetic relationships of panarthropods? I mean, it's a chelicerate. I'm not sure what else.
So, if I am remembering correctly, I believe it's Pycnogonida, which is the sea spiders, are the most basally derived chelicerates with respect to the others. Then Cumulative, and then all the others. If I'm remembering correctly.
That also
I do
sounds right
believe-
to me.
But yeah, they're all, and part of the problem is there were such radiation of arthropods, which occurred in the like mid to late Cambrian. There were such rapid speciation times between the origin of different clades, and so you end up getting like a lot of signal overlap between like
Yeah.
in trying to figure out which is sister and which isn't sister, and there's a lot of convergence that goes on early in the radiation of different lineages, and everything a lot of the arthropods in the Cambrian look very similar to each other, like the early.
You mean like they all
mandibulate-
descended from a common ancestor, and then as you're
No,
close to the
wild.
divergence time, they look similar, and more similar as you go backwards in time, and less similar as you go forwards after
Crazy.
divergence? Weird.
Bonkers. H
Yeah.
bomber guy says.
It's one of my favorite trends in the fossil record that the creationists just ignore. It's like, hey, how come the earliest horses and rhinos look exactly alike? I don't know.
Did a video where I discussed a paper talking about the hips of elephants and Saurinians, and wouldn't you know the like Meratherium has almost identical hips with like early Saurinians,
Like
like who would've
Pesosiren and
thunk it?
whatnot.
Pesosiren, Protosiren, all those guys, like
Yeah.
whoa, shook. Who would have guessed?
Weird. It's almost like the big difference at that stage with whether or not you wanted to inhabit a watery or a forested environment.
Yep.
Here we go.
Craziness.
Your ball would say, against all odds. Okay. Or was that your book? I get who wrote what book confused there, Dr. Petro. Against all odds, that Dr. Ball's book or yours? Okay, there you go. Okay, let's take a look here. Should the use of antibiotics be restricted? They're thinking you shouldn't even use hand sanitizer because you're creating the
What? Excuse?
I mean, I don't know. I haven't read this, and I really can't because it's extremely fuzzy.
I mean, I could
And
understand.
it looks like a high school textbook.
Should the use of antibiotics be restricted? Sure, in certain cases.
I mean, it largely
Like
is.
we talked about earlier. You're right. We talked about earlier with like you shouldn't just do broad spectrum antibiotics for everything, or
Well, so something else that happens, like, so my sister's a pediatrician and she runs into this a lot. Like 30, 40 years ago, people would prescribe antibiotics like inappropriately, right? Like kiddo has, say, like the flu or a cold, like a viral infection. And the doc would just be like would basically prescribe an antibiotic because it's not going to hurt, and it makes the parent feel better, feel like they're doing something, right? Like, and so sometimes parents will still do that, right? They'll come in and they'll demand, no, you have to prescribe antibiotics, even when it's like, no, it's not a bacterial infection that literally won't do anything. And that practice of over prescribing, right, like when it's not appropriate, is thought to be one of the factors that contributes to the development of antibiotic resistant bacteria.
Right.
So if this is referring to, should the use of antibiotics be restricted to when it is medically appropriate? Gonna drink.
Yep, drink for Mothra.
you're right. Yeah,
Unfortunately,
we talked
the first
about,
bit of Mothra was actually while I was muted on stream and not internally,
no.
so you guys missed about
Okay.
half of Mothra. But also, we have a $5 super chat, so we're going to drink real quick, then read that, and then go back to what Jackson was going for, or Good Jackson was going for.
Okay.
There's a drink for Mothra. For $5, Carrie Bronson says, fine, if nobody else will make the obligatory hips don't lie joke, I will.
I'm on tonight.
Nice.
My hips don't lie.
We discussed in the previous episode, Maddie, or Dapper brought it up, the MRSA bacteria. For anyone who's not aware, it's multiple resistant Staphylococcus aureus. And there's like a whole group which are called the escape or escapee, depending on which, whether or not you add like certain bacteria into it, which are all resistant to lots of different antibiotics. So it's like different Enterobacter, E. coli, Staph aureus, and all these other guys, Klebsiella. Yeah, they're resistant to antibiotics because they are so common, and they're so commonly patients are prescribed antibiotics to deal with them, and then they won't take them all or take them incorrectly, and then we end up with all these guys who are resistant to multiple strains. So yay, go us!
Hooray! Also, for $5, my unfinished journey says, what's Bad Jackson's doctoral thesis about? The caloric content of phlogiston? Which, nice. But also, I don't think he actually has a doctorate. Maddie, you just looked at it. Wasn't it all masters and bachelors?
No. He has
Education.
he doesn't have a PhD, he has an EdD.
Okay.
So he has a doctorate of education in science education.
Got it.
And I'm not trying to put down like EdD or PsyD versus PhD.
Oh, no, I'm not
They're all doctorates. Just
I just thought that
so yeah, he has,
I would just misremember when you read off the list.
yeah.
Yeah, no, there's no shade on ed Ds. I mean, look, education is really important. I would like to have highly trained
Yeah.
educators as a thing that exists. I just would
Yeah.
prefer that they not be dishonest hacks. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Continue. I'm gonna try to find out what his dissertation was on.
Okay.
He's
So I'm
evolved
Googling,
new
don't mind
germs
me.
that nothing will kill him, and that's just not true. Many
Okay.
kinds of disease-causing this fate.
Yeah, it's just not true that if we just keep overusing antibiotics, we won't run out of antibiotics that we can use to actually kill these disease-causing agents. That's
That
impossible.
hasn't happened with penicillin, cephalosporin, carbapenem,
Yeah, I'm just
That-
taking a
that-
drink for how dumb that is.
moxicillin, methicillin, ampicillin.
My
Doesn't
goodness.
happen.
I am just very happy that Bad Jackson isn't in charge of medicine anywhere. Because,
I need you all to
Okay.
know that the title of his like bio page on Creation Today is Dr. Charles Jackson, scientist, genius, Christian.
Well, that's right, because he's the guy who won like a Genius Award or something, wasn't it?
something like that. I think he's like a proud card-carrying Mensa member or some crap like that.
Yeah, that's
Oh my
that's
God.
right. Yeah.
Okay, but do you remember that time that Mensa admitted Little Orphan Red, the Flat Earth adult movie star? Because that's a thing that happened.
That's
The
a
only
member of their
requirement to
group?
get into Mensa is a certain like number on an IQ test.
Yeah.
Like it's not.
It's not that hard to get in.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't think it would be that hard to fake the credentials to get into Mensa. I think it's like a 140 IQ or something. And like the other thing is like, who
No,
even?
it's lower than that.
Oh, is it lower than that?
Because it's the top 2%, and 140 is usually the cutoff for like less than 1% if you're doing standard deviations.
By the way, guys,
Anyway,
there's a plague of bots using Cyrillic alphabet usernames and then putting in actual nonsense. So if my mods see that, feel free to delete. Although, you know, check that it's actual nonsense. Don't just hide people because their name is in Russian or something. So just gonna put that out there because it's been happening on a lot of channels and it's really annoying.
Is
Here we go.
It off on the left, so I wrote out in the black area there so you could see what that word was. Many kinds of disease-causing bacteria are evolving resistance to antibiotic drugs intended to kill them or interfere with their growth.
Yes.
This wide use has caused many bacteria, including Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which causes tuberculosis, to evolve resistance to antibiotics. This resistance is a prime example of the evolution of a genetically controlled physiological trait.
Yes.
Okay.
true.
So
Yeah.
they're just claiming this is evolution, man. This is Darwin all over the place. Now,
I mean, it literally is. It's variation in allele frequency over generations as a result of natural selection. I don't know what else that would be. That is the actual definition
Didn't
of
turn into a
evolution.
goat.
But that's a good point. It didn't
Bacteria
turn into
didn't
a
turn
goat,
into
so
a
it
goat.
doesn't count. Goodness. Oh, tell me you don't know what evolution is without telling me you don't know what evolution is. Goodness. Like, you can say, like, oh, this is evolution, but it doesn't get us universal common ancestry.
Microevolution.
Yeah, you say it's microevolution, and like, look, I agree that bacterial resistance to antibiotics doesn't get you universal common ancestry. That's true. On its own, that's not going to get you there. You could say that, but instead, no, we're just going to pretend it's not evolution in the first place, even though it obviously is.
Really needs to get with like the other creationists before making these arguments, because they would at least say, yeah, antibiotic resistance happens, but
Yeah.
it's not. That's not evidence for common ancestry. But no, he's like, no, it doesn't happen.
Oh,
Not
we have a
real.
quick question about the Eastern Roman Empire and Byzantium and Greek and whatnot. So
Had a quick question.
or it's being talked about a little bit. I'm gonna jump in there a little bit.
Quick summary.
Look, Jackson, if I want to talk about Byzantium, I'm going to talk about Byzantium because it's high time to retake Constantinople.
now it's Istanbul, not Constantinople. Do.
Yeah, we're going to take it back, and it's going to be Constantinople again.
Does
And,
this count as like terrorism on the internet?
and we're going to fly the Byzantine flag like they do at Mount Athos still. Because for some reason, they still think they're part of the Byzantine Empire. Anyway, now that weird, like, pro-crusade memes are out of the way. Sorry. So the thing with Byzantium is that it basically was always a Greek-speaking area by like a large majority when it was set up as the seat of the Eastern Roman Empire. So all of that area, like Anatolia, Eastern West, North Africa, Judea, things like that. Those were all places where the primary trade language was Greek. And if you didn't speak a local language to that area, like if you weren't like an Arab or a Jew, or you weren't speaking like Coptic or something, you were speaking Greek as your native language. And even if you were one of those other people, you were speaking Greek as a second language just to get by. So, and Latin never really made it big there. It was only ever a language that was used in like some imperial documents at really high levels. And so when Constantine decided to set up there, he basically just decided not to rock that boat. And Greek, for a little while, Latin was still like the court language, but that didn't last long because increasingly the subsequent emperors of the Eastern Roman Empire were bad at speaking Latin, and they weren't always in close contact with Latin speakers in the West. So even then, like, it was hard to keep their Latin like current with what was developing as like early medieval Latin. And so yeah, eventually Greek did become the court language. Actually didn't take all that long. But the reason they were still calling themselves Romans is because there was still that direct line of continuity from Constantine, who was the last emperor of a unified Roman Empire, all the way through to the fall of the Constantinople to the Turks, way, way later. So that is why that is still considered the Roman Empire, despite not speaking Latin and not having a whole lot to do with Rome. And there you go. There's your little bit of Byzantine, like, less than one page summary. Anyway, that's completely off topic. Here we go.
Watch what they say next. Now, I've primed you for this, so keep your thinking cap on. Resistance evolved.
Oh, real quick, for $5, Caleb sure says, Dynakis, AIG's bag of Desme will blot out the sun, Leonidas. Then we will fight in the stain. I can't anymore. Very nice. My goodness. We should just have a stream where everyone tries to get their best AIG or a bunch of dicks quotes in. That's the whole stream. It's just like the thumbnail can actually just be like AIG logo and then Richard Nixon because he's Tricky Dick. That's the whole thumbnail.
Because bacterial populations contained a few individuals with genes that enabled them to destroy, inactivate, or eliminate the antibiotics.
Yeah, that's natural selection. Thanks.
Boom.
Thanks.
They were already there.
Yes, if the entire population didn't have any members who were resistant at the time of the introduction, then the population would have gone extinct. We all know that.
The follow-up question is, how were they already there?
Yes.
That, my good sir, is
where did these
mutation.
alleles come from? Yeah. My goodness.
It's wild. It's freaking bonkers.
Already there. But the book tells you that. It just goes on like that didn't just contradict itself.
I think it's like it's assumed
didn't.
that you understand that intuitively.
Yeah.
I don't think they feel the need to tell you there were already some members of the population who potentially had the alleles which would make them resistant to antibiotics. Like, that's just kind of understood. I guess not for this guy.
By the way, Stupid Whore Energy for $4.99 US says AIG can eat a bag of penis. So there you go. Actually, the local international market, which is primarily just an Asian market, does sell steer penis in the meat section. You can get a whole gigantic penis in the meat section if you want to. So you can literally eat a bag full of dick if you go there.
Get some meat in the meat department.
Yep. They also sell alligator tail meat. You can get that there too. Super expensive though.
That's scary, isn't it? That's scary.
Is it? No, it's not.
Isn't it?
I mean,
Isn't
it's
it
a little
scary that this book accurately describes evolution?
mean, I'm a little scared by the fact that bacteria continue to evolve ways around our antibiotics.
Yeah,
that is a little scary.
That part is scary, but what he's saying is scary is that this book is accurately describing evolution and then calling it evolution.
And no, that's
Not scary. That's what we would expect.
Decidedly less scary.
It's like a young Christian with one of those purity till marriage rings on, just says, "Sure, I'll go to a hotel room with some guy or girl and lose my virginity." Yes. Sure.
So it's like the majority of
Appreciate-
Christians with a purity ring. Got it.
Appreciate that he said
It's almost like purity culture is really damaging.
Yeah, and it doesn't work at all to actually keep people from having premarital sex.
Mm-hmm.
no.
Yeah.
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 He's approaching the line, but he's not going to cross it. He's going to get that
Well,
understanding.
yeah, but the purity culture preachers aren't going to tell you where that line is. You just have to kind of figure that one out, apparently.
In a hotel room, no less.
Yes, obvious. Well, that's where you find the line. Where else are you going to do it? My goodness. Yeah, in case anyone doesn't know, purity rings are this thing that in some churches, they have these kids sign pledges to not have premarital sex, and they wear these purity rings, and it works about...
No.
Oh, okay,
no.
hold
There's
on.
more to it.
Well, okay, but I don't
Okay.
want this to be the whole episode as purity culture.
Okay.
So that's like the one-line summary of what's going on there.
Yeah.
And this works about as well as leaving like a plate of bacon on the floor and telling your dog, now don't eat it while you go off to work. And then coming back and being like, the bacon is gone. Well, my dog promised not to eat it. Yeah, that's about how well purity culture works at keeping kids from having premarital sex.
Two contradictions. I mean, vowing that we're talking about science and then all of a sudden crashing and burning and destroying that which you said you love.
I don't even know what he's talking about at this
It's that
point.
bad to me. I think evolution is scientific prostitution. I think it's
Cool. Good for you.
Just take a drink. I don't even know what that means anymore.
Good for you, Jackson.
Well, it's not only blasphemy. It's just it's an abomination.
That's great, man.
Scientifically, intellectually.
That's great.
And that scares
Everything
me that
that-
people smart people, educated people, reasonable, civilized people stand there and stand on evolution. Like this. Look at it. You can see it right on the page. Resistance evolved because bacterial populations contained,
Mm-hmm.
past tense, a few individuals,
Yep.
which a story I just told you, with genes that enabled them to destroy, inactivate, or eliminate antibiotics. Okay,
Yep.
descendants of those physiologically similar individuals survived and reproduced
Yep.
and became today's resistant strains. No, they didn't
We have
become
it.
anything, they already were.
No.
What?
No, they became
the
today's.
fact-
I just.
Fact that ampicillin worked, unrestrained for like a decade or so before suddenly it didn't work unless you included it with other things, kind of indicates that they weren't the most resistant strain, or that the resistant strains that were there not dominant, weren't like
Right.
around a lot. So
Yeah, because
okay.
in an environment absent the antibiotic, those strains tend to be outperformed by the strains that are susceptible. Because
Right, you
evolution is a trading game, right? If you become better at living in an environment with antibiotics, it generally means it's at the expense of how good you are at living in an environment that doesn't contain that same antibiotic.
Right, exactly, and per neutral theory, you're gonna have a huge sea of these alleles which are coming into existence, and then through drift, some of them are lost, and
Mhm.
they fluctuate. They're
And
gonna
with populations
sort of
that
randomly.
big, oh sorry,
Right, yeah, exactly. With these huge populations, you've got loads and loads of alleles which are fluctuating randomly because there's no selection pressure on most of them.
right.
Until you get that selection pressure, and then suddenly they become very prominent.
Yep. Also, there's an experiment that I really like, and it's filmed in like time lapse, and they have these different strips of agar that have different
Yes.
concentrations of antibiotic in them, and so the two sides on the far left and right have essentially no antibiotic. I believe that actually starts out with 0 antibiotic, and then each next bit is like
The magnitude
It's like
greater.
yeah, it's a magnitude
concentration.
greater. It's like so the first time they put in just a little bit of antibiotics, and it's like 10 times as much, 10 times as much, 10 times as much. And the thing is, if Dr. Charles Jackson were right about this, you would essentially see at every time that you get the bacteria coming up to the next step, they would just immediately, some of them would jump over. But when you actually watch the time lapse of this, the populations stall at each section, and then one or two little strains actually makes a breakthrough, and then it quickly fills in the next section, and then it stalls again. That's because while somewhere in that entire population filling up that entire strip of agar, some bacterium probably had the resistance, it might not be one of the ones that just happens to be near that border with the next one, which means that you have populations that are actually actively mutating to get these mutations so that they can then spread into the next section. And then you can actually draw, just based on the pattern, an actual phylogenetic tree of these.
Right.
Because what you're watching as you see these little tiny plumes come through into the next section is literal evolution happening, complete with a branching tree pattern. Which is pretty cool, by the way. Jackson,
It was a pretty cool.
If any of my mods can find that video, please put it in the chat.
Yeah, it was it like Cornell or something like that? But yeah, it
I
was
wish I
a really
remembered.
cool video. I included it like very sped up in, I think it was Experimental Evolution Part 1.
Yeah.
'Cause, yeah, you're right. It is a really cool. It even produces the branching tree pattern. It's just
Right, it's
so
literally right
freaking
there.
cool.
You can just see it in the
Yeah.
agar. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, everybody. This is a perfect time if you need to refresh your beverages or do any kind of biological activities that necessitate being away from your computer or phone. Actually, in that case, you probably just bring your phone with you. I know. So we're going to be back in a few minutes. And in the meantime, I hope that you enjoy this wonderful clock that still runs too slowly because I keep forgetting to actually get back there in there and change the frame rate on the animation. So, see you in a bit. right, we are back. And the first thing I have to do is read a £2 super chat from Hawkskull, who says, AIG are a faculty of fetid fallacious phalluses, which is amazing, and I'm going to take a drink. I gotta say, I love the alliteration. Next up, though, guys, you gotta do some assonance. So hit me up with some assonance in the next super chat, if you can. If you don't know what that is, time to go back to English class.
Okay, I don't know what that is though.
So that's when you have similar vowel sounds throughout the phrase.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so like Sunday fun day.
Yes. That also rhymes, but the first section
It's
has some...
Yeah.
Yeah, there's actually assonance and rhyming in Sunday Fun Day.
yeah.
All right. Here we go.
How many of you see that?
I do.
Even in the Evolutionist book. They didn't become, they
What was it like
already
last
were.
week?
There was just a few of them, but now, because everybody else
Yes, even in Evolutionist book, they accurately describe how natural selection works. Go on.
died and
Continue.
these reproduce, they say a new race has evolved.
I don't think they said race.
No,
They said
I don't think that's what they
strain.
said at all.
I'm just gonna take a drink for like subtly trying to race bait this into like weird territory. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Look, Dr. Jackson,
different races
you
of
don't get
cabbage.
to try the race card. It's not gonna work, buddy. It's just not gonna work. Especially when the work that you're talking about didn't even use the word. Even if it had, it's still not gonna work. But like, yeah.
You know what? If that's evolution, I'll believe.
Well, okay, I guess.
Welcome.
Well, yeah, welcome aboard.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Welcome aboard,
Glad to
Dr.
have
Jackson.
you.
Yeah, well, there's
Cookies.
there's cookies and tea in the back. Have fun.
Mhm.
And by the way, these are, like American style cookies or more like British biscuits. So, yeah. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Charles Jackson is no, he sounds American, never mind.
If that's all evolution is, I believe in evolution. But they'll do this, and then they'll say it means we came from monkeys.
No, that's a separate
No.
that's I'm taking a drink. Okay, look,
And that is also true, but not using
Right.
the same line of argumentation.
no one says because bacteria evolved, therefore humans evolved from monkeys. Humans evolved from monkeys, and bacteria evolved antibiotic resistance are both examples of evolution occurring, but they're not causally linked to each other, right? Like, if bacteria just didn't evolve bacteria or antibiotic resistance, it wouldn't make humans not monkeys. And if humans, instead of being monkeys, were like, I don't know, gazelles, that wouldn't mean that bacteria wouldn't develop antibiotic resistance, right? Like, these are different issues. They're connected in that they both involve evolution. But yeah, no, literally no one is saying the reason we know that humans are monkeys is because bacteria evolve resistance to antibiotics. That's no one's argument.
Yeah.
I promise. I'm just taking a second drink because that's just so dumb.
And that the
It's
monkeys
very
came from
Oh,
dumb.
yeah.
fish.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the fish came from bacteria.
Well,
Yep, that sounds right. Yeah.
okay. I feel like there
Well,
were a
was
few
it,
steps that
like,
got skipped.
That monkey had butt sex with another monkey, and that's where humans came from. Not the Mr. Garrison thing.
I believe it was that a monkey had butt sex with retarded fish frog.
That's what it was.
And that made
yeah.
you. And that's how evolution works.
I'm pretty sure that's how we got syphilis.
Yeah.
No, sorry, there was
Um,
a sheep involved in that one.
Best
Actually,
thing about that episode is
I'm pretty
Richard
sure there
Dawkins
wasn't
saw
a
it.
sheep because most research that I've seen says that syphilis actually comes from the New World and was transported from the New World into the Old World after the Columbian Exchange started, which means that it couldn't have started with sheep because there were no domesticated Old World sheep. There were just like mountain goats and whatnot that I don't think anyone was able to have any sex with. Because, they were running wild and running away and kicking people and whatnot.
Yeah.
Not just hanging out in pastures.
Have you seen Lamb, the 2021 movie?
No. Is it?
Well, we're apparently having some something with some sheep in that one.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm saying that because this is what looks like a pre-Columbian New World disease, it's extremely unlikely to have been zoonotically transferred to humans as an STD from sheep. because domesticated sheep didn't exist before the Columbian Exchange in the Americas.
Suppose. Onward!
Yes.
They'll tell you this means bacteria can become blue whales and pterodactyls and condors and
No.
and Clydesdale horses.
No, I'm not going to tell you any of those things.
That order?
Hopefully, that would be a fun little chart of evolution.
It would. We went, whale to pterodactyl.
That's gonna be-
That's a fun jump.
Yes, that I would love to see how that happens. And not just flying thing, actual pterodactyl. You're gonna have to like develop new like skull fenestrae. You're gonna have to redevelop those hind limbs. You know, it's gonna be quite a thing. You're gonna have to get a whole lot more cervical vertebrae. I don't know where you're gonna get them from.
Totally like redevelopment of like keratin
Oh yeah,
and the different those like scales and claws.
I
and
mean,
all that sort of
depending
stuff.
on which whale we're coming from, you might have to redevelop teeth entirely.
True.
Because I mean, if we're talking mysticetes,
So, okay, I'm gonna ask a dumb question. So like the main, there's lots of things wrong with what he just said, but like a
Yes.
main misconception is the idea that like modern bacteria are in any way, shape, or form like the thing that like would be that like multi-cell organisms evolved
yeah,
from.
yeah. So the
Right.
common
Totally.
ancestor
That's
of like
the common answer would be some sort of single-celled organism, but it
Not
would
a
be
bacteria.
really
right.
it's not a bacteria.
Yeah. If you go to
'cause
like
that's
Luca,
a long evolutionary chain.
if you go to Luca,
Right.
you could say it's sort of prokaryote in the sense that it wouldn't have a nucleus, but like it also probably wouldn't have had like the complicated regulatory system that bacteria
The
have.
peptidic
Where they,
glycan cell wall.
right, like it wouldn't have had any of the things that we now associate with modern bacteria.
Okay.
So would it have been a prokaryote? Well, not in the modern sense. Would it have had a nucleus? No. But like it's still, if you found something that was morphologically
Wouldn't have
identical,
even had a DNA genome. It would have had an RNA genome.
I think that's a little contentious on Luca.
Well, they can fight me. I'll put
right.
up my dukes.
Fair enough. But yeah, if you were to like travel back in time, bring Luke, a member of the Luca population back to modern day and hand it over to a microbiologist, they would probably identify it as an entire new domain because it wouldn't match
Okay.
closely to eukaryotes, archaea, or bacteria. So
We are
Okay.
more closely related to E. coli than E. coli is to Luca.
yeah, that's probably true.
Okay.
That's what they'll say this means. But you
Oh,
can't-
drink from Mothra.
there's no even place to leap to from this. Look,
Agree.
once powerful antibiotics are now useless against resistant bacteria. Given this risk, should government agencies restrict the use of antibiotics?
They
We'd
already
make
do.
a stupid
Yeah, they do.
policy decision.
There's a reason that you usually need a prescription, at least in the United States. I don't know how it works everywhere. But at least in the United States, most antibiotics are prescription only. You can get like a few minor things. Like I know you can get some like weak antibiotic eye drops. And I don't think there's much else that you can get without a prescription in the United States. And like that's for like if you have an eye infection, which is not exactly the most dangerous thing. Those are going to clear on their own anyway most of the time. So like you can get a tiny weak bit of antibiotics to help with that without a prescription in the US. And I think that's about it. I think all like the antibacterial soap and stuff, I'm pretty sure that's all just like surfactants and like alcohols and stuff like that. I don't think any of that's actual chemical antibiotics in the sense of like medicines.
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, no.
Fun fact: copper, and as you know, a result, its various what do you call them? Alloys like bronze.
Alloys?
There you go. Yeah, alloys like bronze actually do have pretty strong antibacterial properties. That's one of the reasons why doorknobs in hospitals tend to be made of copper, because it's very hard to evolve resistance to that. And if you have a bunch of bacteria on your hand and you use a copper doorknob, most of that bacteria are going to be dead within a few seconds. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
So what you're saying is that if I got teleported back in time,
Mm-hmm.
before like way before modern medicine,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm trying to figure out how I could use copper having antibacterial properties to my advantage to not die.
You could use it for
Effort.
things
Are
like
you
food
saying-
storage.
You saying
Yeah.
that like if I decapitate my enemy with a bronze sword, they will not get an infection?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, at least not at first. Yes,
Right,
at least
just wanted
not
to clarify.
at least not at first. But it also means things like if you make your countertops out of copper, they'll be less likely to spread infectious bacteria. Of course, that's expensive, so I understand why people might not want to do it, but like it's an interesting little factoid about copper. It has strong antimicrobial properties. Anyway,
which basically doctors are doing based on this. Right here, you can see the textbook is living in some kind of a fog. It's like you hit the person,
What?
the author, in the head with a baseball bat as they were writing this, and it just makes sense to them.
I'm sorry, no, that's
Makes
just
sense to me.
makes sense to me too.
What does it make sense, Bad Jackson?
Basically, the only complaint he has that I can figure out that he has that is in any way reasonable is that they haven't gone into the mutations that cause the individual cases of resistance to various antibiotics, which isn't really relevant to a discussion of should we restrict antibiotic resistance or use to prevent the the outcome of super strains of bacteria like MRSA. The answer is yeah, probably that we probably should do that. But apparently, because we're not discussing every single mutation, by the way, mutation-saturated populations, we're talking about populations that are so large that they have sampled the entire available option for all mutations somewhere in the population, right? So, because we don't talk about that part in this book, apparently that is a problem for evolution and also means that we shouldn't worry about increasing bacterial resistance, which again, I'm just really happy that Bad Jackson is not in charge of any kind of health policies anywhere in the world, except I guess maybe at like AIG or something, which, you know what? If AIG wants to just go all die of like some random bacterial infection that they could have prevented otherwise, I mean, I'm not hoping for that, but like my sympathy card is going to be I'm going to be sending a very small sympathy card.
Yeah, that's a play stupid games, win stupid prizes type of situation.
Right. I mean, as far as I know, they're still not enforcing masks at the Ark Encounter or the Creation Museum.
Oh, that's terrible. But one thing I did want to comment of, I don't understand, it seems to be such a young earth creationist thing to like argue from textbooks for children.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they love that.
Right? They love that. And it's very confusing to me of why the source we're going to be very upset about, you know, is
a book for
designed
babies.
for yeah.
You see, Maddie, if the kids aren't learning about like transpeptidases, the creationists are upset. They have to know.
Yes.
If they are not learning about like college level biochemistry and like microbial physiology, then we are doing a disservice to the children.
Yeah.
What's happening here?
Look, you can't just go with mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. I want fourth graders to be able to write out the entire chemical process that the mitochondria use to take in ATP and turn it into energy that's usable by the cell.
You have to like write every single step of the citric acid cycle, and then name every enzyme in the electron transport chain.
Yeah. Otherwise,
really
your fourth
upsetting.
grader is just a dummy. That's what's happening.
It's just so dumb.
I had a professor who lied to the class one time. This was in microbiology I took, and she said, "You won't have to know the individual steps that glucose goes through in glycolysis." And we said, "Okay." She said, "You just have to know the inputs and outputs." And we were like, "All right, fine." And then one of the first questions on the test is, what is like the first enzymatic reaction that turns glucose into this other sugar? And it's like, are you freaking kidding?
But that's not the whole thing, Jackson. That's only one part of it.
No, I agree, but even then it's like, what? Why would you do this?
That's a real dick move right there. That's an AIG move, if I would say.
Like, it becomes pyruvate, or pyruvic acid at the end. No, what is the first sugar it becomes, or that glucose is turned into? Like, no, I refuse.
All right, here we go.
But you have the mind of Christ. You've not been given a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and of a sound mind. I'm not making fun of evolutionists. I am making fun of evolution. But I think it's tragic. I would make fun of cyanide, but I think it's tragic that someone would eat it.
What do you make fun of cyanide?
And you'll have to make fun of Kent because he's real into that apricot seed vitamin that's just cyanide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only a loser would be like composed of carbon and nitrogen.
Right?
Yeah. Jeez.
Dummy. With some hydrogen tossed in for good measure.
Right. Yeah.
What a weirdo. I bet he's got oxygen in there too.
Ugh.
I think it's tragic that anyone would believe this. I mean, it's just, Paul would call it dung. I could call it
F's
another
in the
four-letter
chat
word,
for all
but
the
this is
people who
church.
believe in evolution,
This is
apparently.
ridiculous.
It's tragic.
It has no merit scientifically. It has no value intellectually. This is anti-intellectual and anti-science.
Says the
Demonstrate
actual
that.
young Earth creationists. You might as well be a flat earther, dude. I'm taking a drink. For anti-intellectualism being a complaint by a young Earth creationist. My goodness.
Yeah. Also, like, demonstrate that claim, my guy. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
is because, like, I don't understand what his claim is. Is his claim that there are not antibiotic resistant bacteria? Is his claim, like, you know what I mean?
No,
Like,
he's
he
not claiming that. He definitely says that there are. His claim seems to be because this book doesn't talk about the cause of the mutations that result in antibacterial resistance, that therefore this isn't evolution, which does not follow in the least. Like, I'm sorry, but like a particular source that doesn't give you an exhaustive explanation of every aspect of evolution when talking about policy proposals for antibiotic distribution, that's just not a point against evolution. That's just you not understanding the point.
And for crying out loud, this is very clearly a high school textbook, and this is like designed to make high school children write a 5-paragraph essay, right? Of, you know what I mean? Like, that's clearly what this page out of this book is for. Because they're gonna, you know, they're gonna supposed to read this, formulate an opinion, and then write it down and defend it. And that's a really great writing exercise for that, like, age level, right? Of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not supposed to be super comprehensive. It's mostly what it's doing is presenting some interesting information and trying to develop some critical thinking and communication skills in, like, 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
The purpose of this page out of a child's textbook is not to perfectly explain a process. God, sorry, this is right. And he should know things about education.
Being a doctor of education?
Being a doctor of education, like, he should understand the purpose of this page. He doesn't need to know the ins and outs of bacteria resistance, right? Like, I don't know the ins and outs of that. But oh god, okay.
Okay, here we go. We'll get a little bit more in.
Let's keep going.
If I can see my stupid mouse, there we go.
To say what they said at the top of the page, and then they go on and admit what the process really is, and it has nothing to do with becoming anything.
Except resistant to antibiotics, which was the whole point.
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine an article about bacterial resistance to antibiotics, not talking about how things other than bacteria evolve. What a weird concept.
What?
I'm taking a drink.
Strange. I'll join you.
Like, I don't get it. I mean, this is the same thing as saying, like, oh, hey, this paper about why the far side of the moon is more heavily cratered doesn't explain the origin of the Big Bang. It's like, yeah, I know. That's...
Where, my guy?
What do you, like...
Let's go back to Sesame Street with one of these things is not like the others.
I just... like, I don't know. What do I say? Like, I'm sorry, Dr. Jackson, that not every single work that uses evolution as an explanation for the data and as a predictive model, I'm sorry that not all of those explain every single aspect of all of modern biology to your satisfaction. But I don't think that's a reasonable expectation, because yeah, lots of things have a point that isn't to teach idiots everything about biology in one article, which is apparently what Bad Jackson would like. I just... Okay, we're going to hit play.
Population now has more of these than it did before. But that's all.
Yeah, that's evolution.
Nothing new. Okay.
Okay, but the alleles came from somewhere, dude. The greatest thing about this is that, like, this wouldn't be a hard thing to test, right? So, like, at this point, we can reasonably isolate a single bacterium. Okay. So, oh, and we just got a super sticker from Valkyrie for $2.99 that says, next time with a fist shaky hippopotamus person. I like it. I just lost my train of thought. Oh, right. Like, this isn't super hard to test, right? You can take a single bacterium from just whatever particular species you want, right? Because we can do that. We have microscopes that are good enough. You could isolate one. And then you could just let it grow on a petri dish until you have a nice big colony, right? Then you could take that and spread it to several other petri dishes and give various doses of various, antibiotics and do some broad spectrum in some of them and whatnot. And if you get different resistances in different populations as a result of that, that's proof positive that there were mutations in these various lines because you started with one genome and now you have multiple. But is Charles Jackson going to do this experiment? Because he could. Like, that's not that... I mean, other than the fact that it's hard to isolate a single bacterial cell, and like you're probably going to have some failures where like they just fail to thrive. Like, a bunch of agar, a bunch of whatever food your chosen bacterium prefers, and then like some samples of antibiotics. That's all it's really going to take.
Sure somebody in my like 4th grade science fair like grew penicillin from bread mold and use that to like use that to see how effective it was at like treating or preventing bacterial growth.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about
4th grade science fair.
Right. We're talking about something that like kids with an age in the single digits can kind of figure most of this experiment out. Isolating individual bacterial cells, okay, that's going to be on your average 4th grader, but like we're talking about things like most of this experiment could be conducted by 9-year-olds. It's not that big of a problem. But is Dr. Charles Jackson actually going to do this experiment? No. And here's the other thing. Is anyone else? Well, no, because no one else is stupid enough to not know what mutations are.
Well,
or to think they don't exist.
You can propose it to the local elementary school science fair.
Yeah, maybe.
They
Guys,
just might need a little help.
if anyone watching has a little kid, maybe
Do you have an 8-year-old?
Right.
Do you want us to help them with their science fair projects?
Here's an option. You could have them do the experiment that Charles Jackson is too lazy to do himself.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's too afraid to do it because he knows that the outcome wouldn't support his conclusions. That's another option. That's the spicier take.
Ooh, that's very spicy.
Is it though? Because that actually seems pretty straightforward as what's going on here. There's a reason that like creationists like to make predictions and then never like to test them.
Yeah.
In this textbook, also a very popular one, I think the front of it now is 2 zebras. This is McGraw-Hill, co-written with National Geographic Society. And I was just showing this to some students New Year's Eve in Haskell, Oklahoma, for a youth meeting.
Why are you
for a New
harassing
Year's Eve
children on
meeting.
their break?
Right? Also, who cares where you last presented this?
Yeah.
And look what it says here in the book. With the continued use of antibiotics, bacteria can become resistant. More and more types of bacteria have evolved resistance to penicillin. Evolved. This is a high school biology textbook telling the students it's evolved.
He's right. That is a high school biology textbook telling students that bacteria have evolved.
Technically right.
We'll take a drink. Good job. You have successfully identified both the type of book and the content in the section that is under discussion. Dr. Jackson, well done, sir.
Such low
Is what we're
standards.
supposed to take away from that what's in high school textbooks is propaganda and you shouldn't... Okay.
Yeah.
That's... It's like, he's not making this drives me nuts, right? Is they don't actually make the point, right?
Yeah, honestly, if he doesn't make an argument by, like, the end of the next episode, we're not finishing this video. If his whole shtick is just going to be, hey, look, this source accurately describes evolution, and for no particular reason, I disagree that that's evolution, we're going to...
For no particular reason, that makes me mad.
Right, we're going to switch to something else, because I thought that there would actually be some discussion about, like, I don't know, biochemistry, or, like, the source of mutations and why that wouldn't work, or like I don't know, some kind of created heterozygosity, or like anything that matters other than Dr. Jackson not knowing what evolution is and then getting mad about it.
Yeah.
I was hoping that this would be more substantive, especially since it's a 2-hour video. I'm hoping that it can't all just be him incredulously stating that a description of evolution isn't what it is. So we'll see what happens, but I can only take so much more of that argument.
The same textbook, super bugs defy drugs. Antibiotics have prevented millions of deaths, but many disease-causing bacteria have developed resistance to antibiotics that used to kill them.
Yeah.
Well, if one of them's already immune, they didn't develop anything. They just survived and multiplied, and now the only population that's left to continue to multiply are the resistant strain.
Yes, that's evolution. Everyone, good job. Take a drink, everybody.
Good job.
It is natural selection, so yeah, there you go.
Correctly described evolution.
You haven't described all of it, but you've described something that meets the minimal definition.
Yep. It's
Take
an
a look at this
evolutionary process.
textbook. I think this is a Holt-Reinhardt textbook. Look what it says. The development of bacterial resistance to antibiotics is direct evidence for evolution. Direct evidence for evolution. Look what it says over here. Today, penicillin no longer affects as many species of bacteria because some species have evolved. And then it's so amazing that they can look at a page like this and miss what I'm about to show you. Look, here's the picture. Step A, the bacteria in a population vary in their ability to resist the antibiotics.
Okay, Jackson, what was the first part of like the whole process when Darwin was describing natural selection and the origin of species via natural selection? Was
like variations inherently exist in a population?
Yeah, I feel like that was the first step that he pointed out, that like populations are variable. What was the second step?
That they vary in their abilities to interact with their environment and their conspecifics and reproduce.
Okay. And then what does that result in?
The results in adaptations, those who have variations which on average make them better at surviving and reproducing in a particular environment are more likely to spread those variations throughout the population.
Okay, and then we get a population composed primarily of the descendants of those organisms that had the variations that made them better adapted?
Indeed, I would say.
So what we're describing in this textbook is literally the exact same thing that Darwin was talking about. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I know you've read The Origin of Species, but it's been a while for me, right?
Is Ben Jackson's fundamental argument that mutations don't occur?
I think it might be.
Could be. I mean, honestly, that'd be a very interesting position for him to be like, every variant was created by God 6 to 10,000 years ago.
Every variant of bacteria was specially created by God, despite the fact that bacteria are in mutation-saturated populations. Oh, for 1999 from Cynically Skeptical, thanks for this channel. Thank you very much, Cynically Skeptical. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. It really does, guys. Look, we laugh and joke with all the super chats, but like, you guys help keep the lights on, right? Like, so it's every bit is greatly appreciated, especially a generous super chat like that. So thank you very much. But yeah, his hang up has to be the source of variation. I'm hoping that eventually he's going to get to some kind of statement about why he thinks that mutations are insufficient for this. But the problem we have, and this is, looking ahead, we'll probably have to repeat this, is that any change in the genome of an organism is at least theoretically possible through mutation, right? You can have any single change that you want to name, like a duplication, a deletion event, any number of a single nucleotide mutations, anything like that. Any of them can happen. And in bacteria, you have such high populations that you're basically guaranteed to get every single possible mutation at least once somewhere in the population in a very short amount of time. Which means that, of course, any high population species of bacteria is going to have some of them that just happen to be resistant to literally any chemical, but not because their ancestors were, but because, again, you're saturated in mutation. It's sort of like if you had a pool of like 20-sided die, right? And you have like 4 billion of them. And you say, okay, we're going to roll all of them twice. And the ones that roll 20 twice, we're going to take them out. Well, you're going to get some. Not because of like some created tendency to roll 20s, but just because like you got 4 billion of them, dude. They come up with random numbers. Statistically, some of them will do it.
Yeah.
Because that's just a huge number of dice. And actually, I'm going to have to double check my math, because like 20... Yeah, that's definitely true. Because there's a 1 in 400 chance.
20s in a row is 1 in 4.
Yeah, so if you have 4 billion, a whole bunch of them are going to do it. But, right, so now the numbers are bigger in both directions here. We're smaller in one direction and bigger in the other. Right.
I guess about 10 million.
Right. Now, that's not a high proportion.
Lots and lots of them.
But even if you do that again, you're still going to get some that roll 23 times in a row. Because that's what happens when you saturate your field with literally every possibility. That's what's happening with these bacteria. And of course, Dr. Charles Jackson could do experiments that would negate that problem for him. He could do experiments with extremely small populations of bacteria that could not be mutation saturated at the starting point, then let them grow until the point where they are mutation saturated, and then test to see if they have bacterial resistance. But again, Charles Jackson is never going to do an experiment that could disconfirm his idea.
Which I would like to point out has been done. Like, there are experiments where researchers progressively evolve bacteria against different antibiotics to see how it can happen. Then they do phylogenies and they compare the genes of the different strains.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
The simple experiment that disproves Dr. Jackson has already been performed.
Yeah.
So, you know that whole bit about how science winnows away the things that are wrong? Already fait accompli for Dr. Jackson's argument, or at least the best version of his argument that we can come up with, because he hasn't really stated what his real argument is. All right, here we go.
The red ones are non-resistant, and so a lot of them die in the presence of an antibiotic chemical. The blue ones are resistant, like you ivy-resistant people in the audience. Yeah, I envy you so, you know. I'm an Eagle Scout, so when I walk through the woods, I just spot that stuff and give it lots of space. You know, I don't get poison ivy because I see it coming.
But if I touched it,
I don't know what that was. Was that like a humble brag, or like, I don't...
Is that a joke that didn't land?
I mean, if you want a drink, we can just call it one. I mean, I want a drink, sure. Let's call it a joke that didn't land.
Sure.
Sorry.
I mean, you think like these are like formal rules? There's like no governing body that's going to come down and lay down the hammer because we misapplied the rules.
Chuckled as he said it, which is why I thought it was a joke. That
All right,
didn't
yeah,
land, but...
sure. I'm okay with it. I mean, I already drank for it, so.
Too late. Undrink.
Oh, hold on. Let me go throw up real quick.
Yeah.
No, not going to do that.
I would, so I'm not really
I might if I had an inversible proboscis.
immune. I'm just too smart to pick it up and play with this stuff.
It was a humble brag. I'm sorry.
I know
we didn't go far enough.
Leaflets 3.
Okay, well, I don't mind having drank for a humble brag.
Let it be. Berries white, poisonous sight. You see, they taught us in Boy Scouts about that. Okay,
Good job.
There's the setup.
Way to have been a Boy
Step
Scout.
B, when the population is exposed to an antibiotic, only the resistant bacteria survive. So you got your red bacteria and your
blue
bacteria. Okay, only the resistant ones survive.
Hey, good job. Dr. Jackson isn't colorblind.
Very few of the red ones are left. They're all dying off one by one. The resistant bacteria live and produce more. They were there because they are part of the variation. They were there. They survived. They live and reproduce more, and that's evolution.
Imagine thinking.
That drives me nuts. Go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say, imagine thinking that Darwin being right is a problem for evolution.
Yeah. Well, also, if this is what he thinks, right, then you have to have all variations specially created, all possible, like there can't be any new mutations, right? So all possible variations that are ever going to happen are all specially created 1,000 years ago. And then what survives is, because like now, only the blue is left of this bacteria, right? But maybe in a different environment, red would have been more suited. Who knows?
Oh, that's almost
And
certainly the case,
so-
actually.
Yeah. So all we can ever have is a decrease in fitness, right? And a decrease in population, then like life on Earth is a process of everything slowly being killed off, right? So we would have to go from lots of diversity to less diversity,
Yep.
right? And
Well, we're also doing
anything-
rapid speciation, remember?
right, and then so that doesn't make any sense. We can't have rapid speciation with
Dramatic losses of
that-
diversity.
right, with dramatic losses in diversity if you have to start out with all possible diversity, if no new diversity can be developed by, non-magical means. It doesn't, I can't, there's a lot of problems with what but again, he hasn't made the argument that there's no such thing as mutations.
Right.
He's just very mad that a science textbook's using science words.
Yeah, basically. How
that's
dare
basically-
people observe the things that Darwin observed and come to the same conclusion, which he doesn't
Conclusions.
contest. That's the great thing. He
Yeah.
doesn't contest the conclusion. He just contests the words used to describe it, I guess. Because here's Darwin. He's like, this is what I call evolution. And then there's Dr. Charles Jackson being like, yeah, that happens, but I don't like calling it evolution, though. Like, all right, well,
Right.
you don't get to write the dictionary, my dude. Sorry.
Yeah. So like, then how would you describe this process?
Right? He would probably call it variations within a kind.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah, probably.
All right, here we go. We've managed to get through like 8 whole minutes, guys.
Look, before the magic arrow of evolution,
What?
before the magic of evolution, on the left, you've got red bacteria and blue bacteria.
Mhm.
And after the magic of evolution, you've got red bacteria and you've got... Does this require any new DNA?
I don't think it's really magic. I mean,
No, it's not magic.
Showing what the selection pressure is. There.
Yeah, but also you have red and blue bacteria in different proportions, meaning that you've had a change in allele frequency from one generation to the next, which is, I think we established before, is that the definition of evolution?
It's the definition of evolution.
Weird.
Weird.
So, okay, yeah, when
Weird.
evolution occurs, it is fair to say that evolution has occurred. Got it. Now, he is basically correct that, yes, this in itself doesn't demonstrate universal common ancestry, but
Right.
no one's claiming that that's the case. This is an example of evolution in action that gets you to understand some of the mechanisms that evolution has for allowing universal common ancestry, but this is not itself proof of that or evidence really of that directly. We're building a cumulative case, which is how science works. We usually don't find like the one thing that proves the theory. Like that's not how this works. It's a cumulative thing where we say, okay, all of these lines of evidence are all leading to the same concordant conclusion. Therefore, that conclusion is most likely broadly accurate. And when we find places in which it doesn't concord, then we have to do things like modify what our likely conclusion is. And yeah, here we go.
New genes? New traits? No, but this is what the textbook offers up as proof that we came from fish.
Okay. Oh my goodness. I'm taking a drink
They
because
are
no,
new
it's
traits,
not.
though. I mean, like there can be new traits involved, not
Right.
in this specific instance, but there can be.
But the thing is, like, we're starting from a starting point where there are multiple traits. We're not starting, like, basically his complaint is, you didn't start early enough for me. Which ultimately can go
Polymorphisms
all the way back
exist.
to, like, the Big
No.
Bang, right? Like, oh, you haven't explained, Maddie, could you explain how a thunderstorm forms, basically?
Yeah.
But could you explain it going all the way back to the Big Bang?
No.
Well, then you can't explain how thunderstorms form.
Hmm.
Because that's apparently the standard that we're going with.
That's the standard we need.
Yeah. You need to be
Yeah.
able to explain literally everything from the Big Bang until a thunderstorm.
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
you don't know anything about the weather. So take that meteorology degree, and I guess just
legit.
shove it. It's worthless
Just
now.
Shove it
It's-
right up my ass. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's-
just completely pointless. Because I mean, any real meteorologist would know everything about the Big Bang and galaxy formation and planetary formation and stellar evolution and nucleosynthesis and all of those. Those are all required in order for you to tell me about the weather. Yeah. Well, since everyone I'm hopefully recognizes what a ridiculous, absurd standard that is, we'll go back. Because yes, obviously, anytime you tell a story, you could go back further. I'm sorry that at some point a story has to start, and most of them don't start with, well, once there was a singularity.
Yeah, and again, this is a high school, probably about freshman level biology. So this is for 14, 15-year-old. And it's probably their first like biology course, right? And so it's laying some groundwork. It's laying out the basic. It's not saying everything on purpose because because that comes later.
Imagine thinking that you could teach certain aspects of a science at one time and other aspects at another time.
Right. And nowhere in that one page he showed us does it say, therefore, humans evolved from fish, right? Like that's not stated anywhere.
No. Now they did, but when you get to that argument, you use different sets of evidence than antibacterial resistance. Right.
That's like its own chapter.
Or antibiotic resistance. Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's its own chapter in the book. Probably. I don't know. I haven't read that textbook. But if there's going to be discussion of human evolution, that's a different topic.
Right.
Oh, it's all or nothing.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Look, if those bacteria don't turn into a human...
textbook, yeah. This algebra textbook didn't teach me calculus, therefore it's worthless.
All right, here we go.
I'm sorry, but that is exactly what they're doing in this textbook.
Yes, they're exactly teaching you what evolution is.
Natural selection and the evidence for evolution. That's the subtitle of that chapter. Natural selection and the evidence for evolution.
That sounds like there are other... They did, and it also sounds like there are other chapters describing other aspects of evolution that are also labeled as evidence for evolution. But I don't know, because I don't have this book handy. I guess if someone wanted to buy it for me, I would look at it. Which reminds me, someone a few days ago, this is what prompted my channel rules videos that you might have seen, demanded that I do a review of a book. And basically I said, well, if all that's available is a free sample, then no, because I can't legitimately review a book unless I have access to the whole book. And they're like, oh, you're just a coward. And I'm like, if you want me to put it on my Amazon wish list, I'll do it. I'm like, no. I'm like, all right, well then shut up. I'm not just going to buy your pet book because you want me to review it. Anyway, yeah, that's where that came from, in case anyone is curious. It was for people demanding that I do labor for them at my own cost, not just for free, at cost to me. I'm not going to do that for you guys.
Do you remember what the subtitle was?
For this biology textbook?
It was McGraw-Hill Biology.
I thought it was Glencoe Biology. Oh no, that was the early one. This was McGraw-Hill, I think.
McGraw-Hill, yeah. But I think if it's the one with zebras...
No, this is the one with orcas.
Okay.
The zebras is the current one, but the edition he's using had orcas.
Okay. I'm trying to find it. I'm on a Google mission.
By the way, orcas are the largest dolphins. Fun fact.
Ooh. That's a fun fact.
Yeah. Also, they're a major predator of moose.
Saying this proves evolution.
Yeah, moose. It turns out moose like to dive in the ocean for seaweed, where they are occasionally eaten by orcas.
Huh.
Yeah. Imagine being the diver on that trip, where a moose gets eaten by an orca.
No. I'm sorry, but I understand Darwinian evolution a lot better than some evolutionists I talk to.
Drink!
I mean, that could potentially be true, I guess, but then that would mean they have a very poor understanding of evolution.
Look, has he ever talked to someone who believes evolution, who understands it less well than he does? Yeah, probably. But he presented this as like a regular thing that happens to him, which I do not believe. And Mr. K says, sorry, I've been drinking to every joke. Dude, that is a dangerous road to go down. You should... I hope you're drinking like something that's relatively weak, like a weak beer or something. Because if you're just like taking shots, it's time to call the hospital. My goodness. I do worry though, like, guys, be careful. Playing this game is dangerous. I carefully control what I count as a drink, and it's not like a huge quaff of whatever it is that I'm drinking. Which, by the way, quaff,
I'm
fun word.
drinking tea.
Oh. Well, I am drinking a prickly pear or cactus pear infused gin and tonic, which is delicious.
Ooh.
Although I skimmed on the rosemary this time, and I regret it. I should have had... Actually, I just didn't use rosemary. So, I've said it before, but if you have access to prickly pears or cactus pears, or it's called both things, get a few. If you have like a handle, I think 3 is sufficient. Mash them up with like a muddler or something. Pour about 10 ounces of that. I'm giving imperial things because I cook in imperial units. Sorry. Pour about 10 ounces of that gin over that. Add maybe like a teaspoon of rosemary leaves. Fresh or dried, doesn't matter much because you're just trying to extract the flavor molecules. It'll work either way. Then cover that. Leave it at room temperature for about a day or so. Then strain it back into your gin bottle. And you will have some of the most delicious gin. And you can take some bottom of the barrel gin and get absolute magic out of it if you do that. So it's also a lovely deep pink color. It's got this wonderful sort of magenta pinkish color to it. It's very pretty. And now everyone who likes to speculate about my sexuality can continue to speculate, because apparently saying that something is a lovely pink indicates something about that. I don't know why, but it apparently does, based on some of the creationists I've talked to.
It is called insecure masculinity, is what that is.
I mean, I don't care if people speculate. I happen to like this pink.
You.
Oh,
I'm talking about the
talking about
fact
them.
that they associate.
Ah,
No.
okay. Yeah, guys, sometimes pink is nice. It's just what it is. Colors are cool,
There
man.
are lots of little manlets out there who speculate about the testosterone that is circulating in a person at any given time, and
I
these
saw
are silly
that.
people. They're
Yes.
silly people.
If what you spend the night thinking about is how much testosterone some guy that you don't know personally has, I feel bad for you.
And
Yeah,
that's
sounds
not evolution there.
Yes, it is. Just
Is
drink.
though.
That's just natural selection, which would
Well-
happen.
Well, it's not just natural selection. It's natural selection causing a change in allele frequencies in a population over time, which is, again, literally what evolution is. But you know what? We're just going to start wrapping it up, guys, because we're coming up on 2 hours. So, let's see.
I found the textbook.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Can we give it another?
Oh,
listen?
okay. Here we go. Hold on. Okay, so in Unit 5 of this textbook, which is chapters 14 through 17, there is the history of life, the theory of evolution, a whole chapter on primate evolution, and then organizing life's diversity.
Where do you think the bit about human evolution might come there, guys? Just put it in the chat if you suspect where it comes from. I think it might be in the primate evolution section, but what do I know? I'm just a ceratosaurus. I spend all day eating dinosaurs. So, but you guys let me know, because I suspect that might be it. Anyway, Maddie,
Oh,
yeah.
and by the way, I just found this antibiotic resistant graphic. It's in that's in the chapter before primate evolution. They are in separate chapters.
Womp,
I'm
womp,
so
womp.
surprised. Goodness. Did he think that no one would be able to check up on him?
It's
He must
easy
have.
to Google.
Yeah. Well,
He must have.
goodness.
Yeah.
All right. So, Maddie, what do you have coming up on your channel?
Oh, something.
Oh, good.
For you guys that don't know, I just got over COVID,
Mhm.
and so I had taken some time off from the channel for the holidays, and then I got COVID, and now the semester is about to start. So, I have one more video on my first law of thermodynamics series, and then we're actually going to jump into some second law stuff, and then
Nice.
we're going to use that to explore what are called skew T diagrams, which is a vertical profile of the atmosphere, and it lets you you can tell a lot about what the weather is going to be doing from a single point column. So we're getting into some real weather
Nice.
stuff on my channel. No promises on frequency of release for the next 3 months, because I'm also about to start my general exam. So,
Well, good luck.
thank you. And I have it. My channel exists, and I'm gonna release new material. I swear.
Good to hear. All right. Also, Maddie, send me a link to the purchase page for Oops All Clerics so that I
Yeah.
can put it in the description. Because
That would be.
in case, how much is that?
It's like $5.
There you go. So if you
And
guys,
it's about 10 hours of play, so that's like 50 cents an hour, which I thought was a deal.
that's pretty good. So let's see. If you guys want a nice one-shot adventure where everyone's going to play a cleric and you're going to go to church camp and you're going to get some art by myself as well as Cheshire Vic, as well as the writing skills of the lovely Maddie here, I mean, that's literally the only place you're going to get that exact combination. So check it out. I'm familiar with the adventure because I was given like preview copies and whatnot. It seems like a lot of fun. I have to admit, I haven't run it, but Maddie, you've run it, right?
I have run it.
And it was a lot of fun, I assume?
It was so much fun.
See, there you go. It's even got fun new magical items, like a magic axe body spray. So
It has 10 unique magic items.
there you go. And every one of them made me laugh, or at least chuckle. They were all really fun. So yeah, if that's something that you're interested in, please go ahead. And yes, I know that D&D gets poo-pooed by some people, but you know what? Everyone who plays RPGs basically has experience with D&D, so it's one of those things where like it has a wide appeal. Jackson, what's up? What do you got coming up on your channel?
Well, I guess it's not really a secret because it's a series based on a book that exists. So,
Right.
The Bonobo's Tale is next. I did
Okay.
get a comment not too long ago where someone said, "Are you just reading us the Ancestors' Tale?" And I replied to them, "No, but this is a set of summary videos regarding that book." And he responded with, "It was just a joke." Like,
Oh,
okay.
well, good.
So that happened. So yeah, the Bonobo's Tale is next, where we're going to discuss incomplete lineage sorting.
Ooh,
Fancy genetic stuff.
that is fancy.
Comes after that, the Gorilla's Tale, the Orangutan's Tale, the Gibbon's Tale.
No. We
We're
all know that
finally-
the only other ape is Gigantopithecus.
Absolutely. You know, it took us. I think it's really funny now when I hear Creationists say. I mean, I always thought it was kind of funny, but now it especially is because I spent like 8 videos talking about the evolution of just hominins.
Right.
Now I'm finally out of hominini, like on the 9th video. So when they say, "Oh, there are no human ancestors in the fossil record" or things like that, it's like,
Don't make me break out the Dr. Banjo clip, because I'll do it.
I did 8 videos just on human
I
evolution.
know.
Please.
But I have you now, for no one has found the missing link between this Homo erectus and ancient apes. By the way, if you haven't seen A Clockwork Origin from Futurama, go watch it. That's just me plugging a show that I have no affiliation with.
Clutch.
It's
other
really
than
good.
that, like, I don't think so. I don't have any like upcoming guests or anything. But if
Okay.
you want to be a guest, then feel free to come and chat with me. I'm always happy to chat with people.
Nice. All right. Well, so I'll talk about what's coming up on this channel. So Thursday there is going to be a premiere of the next Andrew Snelling video. Unfortunately, I will not be able to be super active in the chat for that because I will be off getting my COVID-19 booster. So I feel like that's a pretty good
Woo!
excuse.
Mine.
So yeah, I was I was staggering because my roommate got his, and I didn't want us to both have it, so that way we would both be sort of like out of commission with like, you know, shot symptoms. So since he got his and I scheduled mine, so that way someone can go wake up and make the coffee. It's basically what that comes down to.
This is why you need a Keurig.
No, it's not as good. I prefer the freshly ground beans that go into the coffee maker. Whatever. It's
That
not
sounds
hard.
like a personal problem then, Dapper.
I agree, it is. And I've solved it
Personal
by
theropod.
staggering COVID boosters. Problem solved.
There you
Problem solved.
Anyway, so then Saturday is going to be the nomination for the Cambrian Bunny Awards, which is a Young Earth Creationist award show, because quite frankly, the Golden Crocoducks are too long dead, and we're going to bring back the idea of Young Earth Creationism award shows annually. So the categories, as they stand right now, are worst argument, worst behavior, worst use of the English language, funniest, and overall best Young Earth Creationist. So those are all Young Earth Creationists.
There's some stiff competition for that first.
Oh, I know. So what I'm going to do is...
Potholer, wasn't it? Who did the...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Potholer.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is a number of my friends have already received instructions for, what these categories mean and which categories there are. I'm going to resend it a few times. And then Friday, they need to get me the categories, their nominations. And then we're going to do something similar to the DFOTY awards that Res Rhetoric used to run, where there's going to be videos that you can like or dislike, and the total likes and dislikes on each video is going to be the votes for that person for that category. And then I'm going to let that go for about a month or so, and then there will be an award show where we actually announce the winners. So hopefully that'll be fun. That'll be coming up at...
Will your avatar be in black tie?
Possibly. I
hadn't
actually decided if that was going to be the case, but now that you bring it up, maybe. Although that might only involve just switching out the blue tie for like a black bow tie. So,
that's acceptable. Can you also? Oh, but you have your top hat on.
Yeah, I have the top hat on already, and the monocle, which isn't part of black tie, but
yeah, it's not technically required for black tie.
I'm probably not going to wear spats though.
Okay.
I know, it's disappointing. Anyway,
so disappointing.
Then on Monday, I'm going to be on Non Sequitur Show again, which I think makes me their only consecutive guest for this season.
Ooh.
Because it's back. We're going to be doing nuclear disasters, and we're going to be doing a lot of focus on the SL1 disaster, which is it's the reason why the United States Army is no longer allowed to operate nuclear reactors, basically.
Only the Navy.
Right. It was really bad. It's a really bad time, the SL1 disaster. Let's just say this. A dude got impaled. It's, as far as I know, the only nuclear disaster that resulted in an impalement.
There was a Russian sub refueling accident that legitimately had rod ejection.
Ooh. Did anyone get impaled?
I can't remember if anybody got impaled, but a lot of people died.
All right.
And several people were like blast backwards.
It's still the only one I know of that definitely resulted in impalement, but it might not be the only one that happened to it entirely. Anyway,
yeah.
Impalements are pretty rare when it comes to nuclear disasters. I'm just going to say that.
It's hard to do.
Right. But the Army managed it, the U.S. Army. Anyway, so we're going to talk about that on Non Sequitur Show on Monday. Then Tuesday should be a Matt with Maddie. So Maddie should be back.
Should be.
Then I don't know which video I'm going to premiere Thursday. It might just be the final Andrew Snelling video. I don't know. Or maybe the third one. I don't remember exactly which one I'm on right now. So there's 4 of them total. And then that next Saturday should be the next Kenthoven dissertation reading. Which, let me know if you want me to do things like change up guests or just add more or go slower or read more of it at once. I don't know. Like, give me some feedback, because I know some people have different tastes about what they want for that kind of thing. But right now, as it stands, it'll probably be, I invite the same people that have been on for most of it, which is going to be Benthoven, Cheshire Vic, Vishanti, and then I'll probably toss the link to some other people in case they want to come by. And that's basically it for this channel. Like I said, do look out for, because hopefully in the next few weeks I can get my Let's Play of the RPG Mothership put together. I have a bunch of audio files I have to all edit together, and it's going to be a fair bit of work, but hopefully I can get up both the motivation and the time and the energy and all that to get that done. Yeah, with that, I want to say very special thank you to everyone who's here, everyone who watched, all the people who super chatted, and let's just get out of here. I just want to take a minute to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above: Bob Knob, Bent Hovind, Denny525, Ian Chen, John Ackerman, Landon Knoll, Lingwei, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Bede, and Patrick Dennis. My channel members and patrons help keep the lights on here at Casa Dino, and they also help make this channel possible, because without them, you'd be lucky to get 1 video a week out of me, never mind 3. If you'd like to support either as a patron or a channel member, there are links below. Also, if a monthly pledge or even an annual pledge isn't right for you, there are other ways you can support the channel. There's a merch store and an Amazon wishlist, and of course, if none of that's right for you, just hitting like, sharing this video, and commenting really helps out a lot. Thank you.